Okay, we're recording, so we're going to do that ROI calculation again. And so to sum it up, most investors are using the rent minus the basic monthly expenses to calculate ROI. Taxes, insurance, management, and then if there's any owner paid utilities like on a multifamily. With single family homes, usually the tenants pay everything. So let's say it rents for $1,000 a month. They pay, let's say, $200 a month in property taxes. Let's say it's $2,400 a year. That leaves you $800. And then let's say it's 10% management fee. So on $1,000, that's $100. So minus $100. And let's say the insurance is about $75 a month. That's like $700 a year or so. So your net monthly income is $625, but ROI is calculated annually, so we have to have the annual income. So we multiply that times 12 months, and your net annual income is $7,500. The way ROI is calculated is based on purchase price. And a lot of these guys are using cash, so rather than trying to figure out financing and all that, we'll just use a cash price. And let's use $80,000. So you divide your net income by the purchase price. So let's say you have a listing that's $80,000. So and it's an occupied rental for $1,000 a month, and you've done this calculation, you can say divided by 80,000, that is a 9.4 cap rate or a 9.4% ROI property at list price. When you do your calculations on any listings you have, you want to use list price. So you can put the verbiage in there, wow, 9.4% ROI at list price. I'm going to pause here. Okay, so your question is, how do investors look at those ROIs? So like this example, we came up with a 9.4%. And I was saying that like 8 to 10 might be okay, 10 to 12, investors might start getting interested, and over 12, they might start really getting excited. All of this is dependent on risk. So when I talk to investors about ROI, it's just like stocks and bonds. If they want to be in a wonderful, safe neighborhood and get a 14% ROI, I tell them those two things don't go together. That as risk increases, the return on investment tends to increase as well, but it's just like stocks and bonds. You could buy really risky stocks and they might say, oh, this might go up 200% in the next two years, but you also might lose all your money. So that's a very high risk. It's just like, I don't know if you remember the junk bond era when it was very, very risky. Some of them went up hundreds and thousands of times in price, but others just went under and the value ended up being zero. So what we find in our market, what I have found just from doing this for so long, is that if you want to be in some very stable, safe markets, you could be looking at anything like a 7 to 10% ROI. And like those neighborhoods right now would be, like your Cleveland Heights, South Euclid, maybe Lyndhurst. And then if you want to step up your risk a little bit, you could get higher returns, maybe 10 to 12% in neighborhoods like Maple Heights, Garfield Heights. And then if you really want to have a higher return, usually you end up being in neighborhoods of Cleveland where the perceived risk is higher. You might have more risk of damage, more evictions, more just challenges with your tenants. Management is tougher in those areas too. I don't know if our manager that we recommend charges a higher price in riskier areas or not, but certainly if you have something in Cleveland Heights or Lyndhurst or Beechwood, the ease of management is much higher. So you might be able to negotiate a lower price, a lower percentage on your management fees.
So like using a real world example, this house came up yesterday on St. Albans.
Okay.
It's 55. The bank's just trying to off it. It's one of those HUD homes. There's 10 days to bid on it.
Okay.
They're asking 55 grand. The house needs nothing.
It needs nothing?
It needs nothing.
That's
I
going to
was
go
in
over
there.
list
I was
price.
in there yesterday.
I mean, of course, that's going to go over list price. There's no way it sells for 55.
Okay, so on like one like that, where you only got one shot, because it's not going to go into multiples. They're just going to wait 10 days and take the best bid. I guess that's where my questions start.
Okay, so there's two ways to look at it. The first way is just straight up market value. So you run your comps, and we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to show you, we had that little discrepancy on how we ran comps. We'll get to that in a second. So you could just simply run market value. I always tell buyers, list price has nothing to do with market value. And the reason I say that is because who created the list price? It's the agent, it's the seller. And so what's market value? Market value is what a buyer is willing to pay. So the list price and the market value may be two completely different numbers. So just because that property is listed for 55 doesn't mean that's market value. So you would run comps and say, here's what that thing is actually worth on the market right now. And now if I'm an investor, most investors, they always say, I want to buy X% under market value, which I think is sort of a contradiction, because whatever you pay, that is market value. But
Right.
what they mean is, okay, Mick, if you run the numbers and tell me that I could sell this house right now for 80,000, I want to buy it for at least 10% below market value or 20% below market value. So that's one way that they look at it. They say if it's worth 80, but it's listed for 55, and I want to pay only 90% of market value, well, then my bid is 72, because you're telling me when I'm done with it, it's going to be worth 80. So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, if it's a buy and hold, is they might want to know, all right, well, if I buy this house, I want to have at least a 10% ROI. So what number can I pay in order to still have a 10% ROI? You have to do this calculation that we just did and back into the purchase price that they can pay. So let's say that in addition to the purchase price, they're only going to have say a couple $1,000s in other expenses. They're going to have to pay closing costs and maybe go in and clean, and so let's say they're going to have $2,000 in other costs. So we have to factor that in, but let's keep it basic. So they want a 10% ROI. How much is the house going to rent for?
1,000 minimum.
Okay, so you want to use 1,000?
Yeah.
And the taxes there are probably more like
$4,000.
So I was going to say 250. Let's just use 250. Let's say your management's still 10%, so minus 100. And let's say your insurance is still 75. So 575 is your net monthly income times 12 months. That's $6,900 net income per year. Remember, we were at 7,500 in our other example, and 80,000 gave us a 9.4. Well, we're below that, so that means we got to pay even less than 80. So you could just kind of experiment with numbers here and see what works. But I'm also going to show you the formula how to come up with the exact number to get to your 10% ROI. So, one way to do it is you could say, all right, 6,900 divided by 75,000. Where does that put us? This is the really easy way to do it. Okay, 9.2%. So it's a little lower than 75. So you could go 6,900 divided by, what did I just do? 75. Let's do 72,000. 9.58%. Now we're at 9.6. So it's probably about 70,000. Divided by 70,000, and that's 9.85%. So you could pay just under 70,000 and still get a 10% return on that property. Now the other way to do it, let's see if I remember this right, is you divide by what you want your rate of return to be, which is 10%, and there it is, 69,000. So what you do is you take your net income, your net annual income, and divide by the rate of return your investor is looking for. So if they say, hey, I'm good with an 8% ROI, how do you do 8%?
Times 0.8 or times 0.08.
divided by, you divide by the rate of return. So it's divided by 0.08. So if they're cool with only 8%, see how much more they can pay?
Right.
But if they say, I want a 12% ROI, 6,900. So it's the net income divided by the rate of return they're looking for. If they say, Mick, I only do 12%, now you divide by 0.12, and now they can only pay 57.5. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do comps next. And I know you and I differed a little bit on those comps, so we're actually going to do that house. Let's do Robinson, because that one had the bigger disparity between owner occupant numbers and investor numbers.
Yeah, by the way, that house on St. Albans, that was what prompted me to ask about this.
So what I usually do when I'm running comps on something is I try to find if it was listed on the MLS. Now, I already know Robinson wasn't, but I'm still going to go through that exercise. So, oh, we have it coming soon. Okay, so if there's a past listing, it's nice to have all this data available. By the way, when we get coming soon listings, it's, all our listings, we should always be looking at them to make sure we like the way the data went in. This is why you're getting questions, because you're listed as co-lister on here. We should be looking at the photos. You should recognize these photos. You took them. By the way, I didn't find a good one of the back of the house. So I don't know if it got deleted or something, but if you still have it, you might want to add a photo of the back of the house. Investors are going to want to see the roof. That's why we did those close-ups. And that's all we have for now. We want to get interior pictures of this, as I mentioned in that email, while the tenant's out. He's going to place a new tenant very quickly. So we want to get photos of this while it's vacant, for investors. Have you been in touch with David yet?
I have no, I have not.
Okay, definitely check with him and find out the short window we have where this is going to be vacant. But anyway, here's the house, 1,456 square feet, 3-bedroom. We're calling it a bath and a half with that toilet in the basement. There's a toilet and a sink in the basement. I'm stretching it and calling it a bath and a half. So what we want to do, typically what I'll do is I'll right click on the home tab, open a new window, of MLS, and then we'll start searching Garfield. So residential. For now, I'll do all statuses. I know Garfield 1704 because I have that one memorized. I don't want to compare to ranches. So let's eliminate the ranches. I know what price range I'm going to be in, so like when I already know the price range, I'll start narrowing it down right away. Like I know this thing's going to be at least 60, and let's go all the way up to 100 just to see what's going on. I want to make sure I'm comparing to 3 bedrooms or more. And I also want to do, because Garfield's going to have a lot of hits, you can see 158 matches. I want to do, actually, let's just do solds because there's going to be so many. So now we're down to 84 matches. Now I want to make sure we're in the right geographic area. So like we're up here. I don't want to look at any of this stuff. I don't want to look at any of this stuff. So I'll usually use the map search function. And because this is kind of oddly shaped, I can't do the radius and I can't do the rectangle. Those are easy. Like if I want to exclude an area, I can say, well, this Cranwood Park, I don't want that. And so you can exclude that area.
And I did just take this little area.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to just do the area we're talking about. I'm only going to go down to Libby here, I think. Okay, and now we've got it narrowed down to, looks like 37. That's not too bad. And plus, I want to see investment properties and owner occupied. And I'll usually start at one end or the other and just start looking at them. I know, so like, this is
this one's stuck in my craw.
Okay, this is bigger. So first of all, you got to remember we're 1,456 square feet. And remember our condition, I mean, I know you saw it in person. I'm looking at our photos. I don't know, do I have a good photo of the kitchen? You know, like this is brass, you know, cheap oak vanity, um, old furnace, old roof. I mean, it's okay, but it's still old. I think these were wood windows. So it's not, I mean, it's vinyl siding, so that's got that going for it. It's a pretty house. I don't have one of the kitchen. I think I held off on that because I wanted to get your vacant photos.
Oh yeah, the kids, they must be moving because there was stuff like all over the place.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is somewhat updated. Parts are, parts aren't. So I'm going to guess at 98.5, this house here is larger and it's probably going to be gorgeous inside. That looks like newer carpet, natural woodwork, granite counters, new cabinets. I mean, this is a good after rehab comp for ours, but keep in mind, this is bigger. Look at the bathroom. I mean, this is if you do a complete gut job on the kitchen and bath. So this is a great comp. 64 a foot is after rehab value, just based on one comp. I want to see more. So I'm just going to store this one in my memory. Actually, what I'll do is I'll check it so I remember, okay, here's where our after rehab values could be. Look, 2,000 square feet, nearly 4 bedrooms. And this only went for 48 a foot. And I bet this is going to be stunning inside also. Actually, carpet looks kind of dirty. Huh. Look at the natural woodwork. I think this one's just big and that's why it sold for so much. But look at this kitchen. And, you know, they did do a partial rehab on this, but it's enormous. Like this isn't even a good comp. I would not consider this a good comp for our house because of the size difference, 4 bedrooms. It's just not the same type of house. This is a little bungalow. I'm sure it's all rehabbed inside at this price. Finger in the picture. Yeah, look, new kitchen, backsplash, granite. You know, again, this is after rehab type numbers. All of that bathroom's not updated. Looks like a partial update in here. But this is more like after rehab value, I would say. Which this seller doesn't want to do after rehab value. And look, 64 a foot. So we're kind of seeing a trend here. So rehab houses are going for 60 some a foot. This one's only 51.0 because it's huge. The bigger the house, the price per foot tends to go down. So this one's probably a very nice house, but you're not going to get, you know, what's 1830 times 65. You know, Garfield Heights in this area is not going to support 119,000 for a house. That's
Right.
why 51 a foot. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure it's very nice inside. We'll take a quick peek. It's probably at least partially updated. I mean, beautiful flooring, looks like new carpet. Look at granite counters, new kitchen. You know, so this is after rehab, but because it's so big, that's why you're only getting 51 a foot. This is not a good comp for us because the square footage is not similar enough. Here's another one. It's also 1,800 square feet. This house is newer. This is probably not a good comp for us. I'm going to skip a bit because I think we're getting the gist of the after rehab value here. Here's a smaller house. Let's see how this one looks. New roof. Looks like newer counters. Terrible pictures, huh? Okay.
Yeah, they need some light. It's a half rehab kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, I would say as far as quality, it's probably very similar. Looks like the furnace might be on the older side, not as old as ours. Electric's upgraded, and it's a bungalow. Ours is a colonial. You know, so I would say price per foot wise, you know, we could be getting close here. But because this one's so much smaller, it's hard to use it as a comp. I'll just keep it in mind for the moment. East 85th, that's all wood siding there. 4 bedrooms. A lot of times they don't have the square footage, so you have to look at the county to see what the square footage was. This one's bigger, 1608. Now, keep in mind, all these sales we're looking at so far, these are all owner-occupied sales. Investors are not paying this kind of money for these houses. And of course, as soon as I said that, this one says what? I know that these guys do rentals. Oh, this is a 4-bedroom, 3 full bath. So it doesn't say this was rented. Let's see if it was occupied. No, so I guarantee what happened here. This is a rental property that someone moved out and they cleaned it up and they're trying to sell it to an owner occupant. I guarantee that's what happened here. Vinyl windows, you could see it's not gorgeous. You know, they've just spit shined it as best they could. And that's one option for our seller. Oh, look at that water damage there. But keep in mind, this house is 4 beds, 3 baths, and it's bigger. We said it's what, 1,608 square feet. So I think from a quality standpoint, we're in the same ballpark. And 1,608 square feet divided into 88,000. Oh, by the way, there's probably a seller give back. Oh no, there wasn't. So you got to look down here too to see if there was seller paid closing costs. It says 0, but I suspect since they went over list price after 107 days on the market, there probably was a seller give back, but let's just calculate it without one. So I'll divide that by the square footage, and that's 54 a square foot. So if he wanted to like clean this house up, you know, our listing, if he wanted to clean this up and, you know, try to sell it to an owner occupant, that's what we were telling him. We were telling him, you know, maybe like 50 a foot on this, 1456 times, let's say 50 a foot, that's only 72,000. At 54 a foot, that's probably that 75-ish that I was coming up with. Do you see how I'm getting there?
I do.
I think in order to get 90 for this one, he'd have to do more. He'd have to remodel that bathroom. You know, he's got old windows, old roof. He'd have to make the inside really something special to get to 90,000 here. Whereas I think he could at least be comparable to this. Maybe not as big because this is 1,600 square feet, but he could get low 50s per foot for this one, as is owner occupant sale. This is a great comp for us. We have vinyl siding, this one's bigger, you know, so I think that 50 some a foot, you know, makes sense. So we keep on going. This isn't a good comp. 60 a foot though, kind of be interesting to see what this one looks like. Oh, it's nice. Kind of open floor plan, probably similar in updates to ours, but look, nicer cabinets. Bathroom is more upgraded, I would say. Oh yeah. So again, this supports what we've been talking about. This is 61 a foot. I don't think our house is worth 61 a foot compared to this. It's roughly the same size. We have a colonial, they're a bungalow, that's a plus for us, but I just don't think we get to 61 a foot. I think we're more like 50s for an owner occupant sale. Let me skip a bit more here. I want to get to some of the rentals. This is a colonial. This is a good comp. Look, this sold in 0 days. Gorgeous. Larger kitchen. It's not particularly updated, but it's larger. I'd say this is a bit more updated. Got some wallpaper there. You know, this is probably a decent comp. Doesn't have the square footage. I'm curious what it is. So this one this is bigger, 1588, and it sold for 86,000. So let's divide 86,000 divided by 1588, 54 a foot. That's that same range. This is owner occupant just cleaned up for our house. This is a great comp, and that's what we were telling our seller. hey man, you could probably be mid 70s, you know, mid low 70s for owner occupant sale. But remember, he's going to get $1,000 a month for that house or 900 a month, and he doesn't want to really do any work. This one has a newer roof, you know, that's why I'm thinking 50, 52 a foot is probably a good range for our house. Now, getting back to rentals. By the way, this is that one that I said was a good comp for Garfield. So Garfield Boulevard is a pretty similar street to Warner Road, but you got to look at the inside of this one. You know, brand new flooring. I mean, this is a full rehab. They opened the kitchen up. So yes, Garfield Boulevard, you could do a full rehab on this and approach these kind of numbers because it's the same style house, but the difference between this and Garfield Boulevard is night and day. They got 85,000 for it. You know, we're nowhere near this. You'd have to put 20 grand into Garfield Boulevard to get this. 111th. Let's get to some rentals here. That's not a rental. We're gonna have to skip a bit here. I'm just looking to see like if it says tenant occupied and rent amounts, because that's where you'll start figuring out what rentals are. And also, you'll recognize the agents that tend to do rentals. This guy does a lot of rentals. But I bet this is probably a rental property that became vacant and they spruced it up and they sold it to an owner occupant. Clearly not an occupied rental property, but this probably was a rental. And then just like our guy, the seller said, hey, I want to sell it. So look what they did. They did all new flooring. They painted. This is a good comp for us. Partially updated. Ooh, it's big though. It had a third floor. It's bigger than ours, and they got 50 a foot. This is again supporting our owner occupant numbers of 50 to 54 a foot for our house. I haven't gotten any rentals yet. Here we go. Here's a rental property generating $11.95 a month. This was the highest rental comp I found. 46 a foot for rental. But this is $11.95 a month. We're only getting 9 1/4. So our investor type buyers are not going to pay as high as this. This house is bigger and the rent is higher. We probably don't get 75 as an occupied rental. This doesn't seem to be a rental. That doesn't seem to be a rental. Here we go. Exactly the rent we're getting. By the way, it's that agent that I mentioned does a lot of rentals.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
3-bedroom house, similar layout. It's a colonial. It's a bit smaller, but the rent is exactly the same. Yes, he got 53 a foot for this, but the price, this is what investors focus on. They don't pay so much price per foot. They pay based on income and value. This is like the perfect comp for us as a rental. Occupied rental, $925 a month. How's the condition? He doesn't have a good close-up of the roof. Investors want to see that. Notice this is what I want you to do, Mick. I want pictures vacant, you know, before it's all cluttered up with tenant stuff. I mean, this is probably similar type kitchen to what we have. Not original, but not today's style. It's not granite. I think this is an excellent comp for our rental value. Look, the carpet, it looks like it's been cleaned, but it's definitely not new. Yeah, this is a 3-bedroom just like ours. Bathroom's probably a tad more updated. It has a 3rd floor, but total square footage, we're actually a little bigger. older furnace like ours, unfinished basement, electrical's been upgraded, 2-car garage. So this is like the perfect comp for us. And that's why I wanted to price ours at 70, because I think this is the perfect comp. And we know it's in our area. In fact, oh yeah, we're right up here. Look, we're 5 streets away. This is the perfect comp. I could keep going, but there's you know, we're going to see the same thing. I found another one. Here's $950 a month. Big Colonial went for 69. Another perfect rental comp. This was not a rental. This was not a rental. Not a rental. Oh, wait a minute. Long-term what? Long-term owner. Okay, that's a dated owner-occupied property. $995 a month, Section 8. This one went for $64.9. So they're getting more rent, but the house is smaller. Horrible pictures. I mean, it looks decent. It's hard to tell from the pictures, but again, that's why I'm being a little more conservative, because here's one that sold for $65,000 that was getting $995 a month. Now it's a bungalow, so it's not as desirable a floor plan. Probably only has a 1-car garage. Oh, no garage. That's why it sold for less. So no garage. That's why this one sold for less. So I think we can beat this number, but we're not going to get into the 70s likely. I mean, maybe we get multiples, but I think we end up probably in the 65 to 71 to 72 range. And that's why I wanted to price at 70 to have more activity. And our seller specifically told us, I want these sold fast. I'm going to stop the recording. That turned into a longer recording than I intended, but that's okay.